G'day everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap, brought to you by Crowcast, of course. Not a great result, but not a bad effort by the boys. Tons to talk about today, and without any further ado, let's get right into it, shall we? There we go. A bit of a weird intro, but that's okay. Good evening, everyone. As I just get my tea out of my mouth. Oh my God. Welcome to the Weekend Wrap again. G'day to everyone who's joined us in Discord and on YouTube and on Twitch, of course. Big show again this week. And joining me, as usual, is Nikki. How you going, Nick?
I'm going good.
Good to hear. And back with us after some technical difficulties, Macca. How you going, Mac?
You're glad to be back, mate. I disappeared into the ether last week.
You did. You did.
I had no studio to come back to.
Look, and there was major controversy because, people thought that I'd censored you for saying stupid things or whatever. That wasn't the case. That wasn't the case at all. It was just some weird glitch exacerbated by some invaders into our live studio audience because I'd set this damn thing to public instead of private, and it all just went to shit after that. But we're here, guys, and lots to talk about. Obviously, a loss today to the Demons, and although it blew out to 41 points, I didn't think it was too bad a showing for much of the game. Mac, what do you reckon?
Yeah, look, they are going to, no, at the moment, they sit top of the ladder. We sit 17th, and I would say that they got some cheap goals at the very, very end of the game. And
Yes,
for the rest of the game, I thought for first versus 17th, I thought we put up a pretty good show. And our immaturity, we've got a lot of young boys. We made some very fundamental errors. We could have been a lot closer than that as well. So, yeah, I thought we played pretty well.
Nick?
Yeah, for me, there was a whole lot of positives to take out of the game. And just particularly watching that first quarter, we kind of let Melbourne know they were up for quite a hard footy game. And, that's all they could actually ask for going into finals. We did exactly the same thing last year to Richmond, and they were quite appreciative of getting such a tight pressure game. So to see our young guys applying that kind of pressure to such a top side was good to see.
Agreed. I thought that was very much the case, both of you. So that's the end of the wrap show. Thanks very much for joining us.
We done.
No, look, don't forget, in the live studio audience, if you want to have your say, you're most welcome to. Just stick your virtual hand up and we'll have you in for a bit of a chat. Don't forget also that anyone that wants to join into the chat during game days, even though there's only one round left, please join our Discord community. We're up to nearly 220, which is excellent, considering we started with probably a third of those numbers at the beginning of the year. So really good. We'd like to build on that over the course of the off-season leading into the new year. And if you want to throw us any support on Patreon, go to patreon.com/AFL Crowcast, and all our supporters are much appreciated. All right, Macca, without further ado, why don't we just get into Macca's beloved weekend results, shall we?
Let's do it.
There we go. I don't know where your bloody music's gone, but
Well,
that's okay.
That doesn't matter.
That's okay. We'll start off with Macca's weekend results without any music. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
It was there.
Oh,
Damn.
well, I was going to
Just
suggest
for a
you hum in the
moment.
background, mate.
Just for a moment it was there. Never mind. All right. Friday night, we had the Giants killing off the finals hopes of Richmond. The Giants getting up 16-10, 106 to Richmond 10-7, 67. Surely now that's game over for Richmond. Margin there of 39 points. The Giants keeping themselves in the hunt.
I've been saying for weeks, mate, they're gone. They're gone, absolutely gone. And can't make it. Even if they did, they couldn't do anything. Josh Kelly, 8-year contract. Showed why they signed him up, although I don't know whether he's still going to be playing that well when he's 34 or 35. But he and Hopper dominated in the middle. Taranto up forward. Richmond just couldn't match them. Short and Baker did a good job for them, but not many other players did. And they're not a shadow of the side they were. And they can't use excuses for injuries or stuff like that. Everybody else has them. No, at the moment, to be very honest, Richmond are pretty poor.
Nick, did you see the game?
I saw the scores and I was commiserating with a Richmond friend.
Yeah.
She was making the unfortunate choice of initially watching it and then halfway through just went, oh, God, here we go.
Yeah. A little bit of fatigue, I think, in that club. A couple of off-field things. A couple of blokes maybe nearing the end of their tether, but they'd be disappointed to miss the 8 altogether after having won the flag last year. So it'll be interesting to see how Richmond bounce back over the off-season, in my opinion, because they've got a little bit of work to do and maybe a little bit of list adjustment to make with a couple of blokes, I think.
Agree with all of that. All of it.
All right. Now, Alistair Clarkson just keeps sticking his middle finger up at Jeff Kennett and saying to him, well, stuff is, I'm just going to keep winning. 9-10-64 over the Bulldogs, if you don't mind, 5-7-37, the Hawks by 27 points.
Well, as you've been saying, Clarkson, he's a man with pride. He is the master. And he's got to stuff up their draft pick, get them up as high as he can. He doesn't do it. Yep. They had no O'Meara, they had no Walpole in the middle, so there's no excuse for the Dogs whatsoever. But they did bring in this Newcomb, and he's a bloody tackling machine, and I reckon he tackled everybody on the oval except the umpires. I'll tell you what, he was insane, wasn't he?
He's a good lad. He's a good lad. Newcomb, I think he'll go well.
But as for the game, well, look, I just think that the Hawks just pressured the Dogs in the middle and couldn't get their game flowing. And it was a concerning loss, I would think, because, we only one more match till the finals and they're playing Port in the coming week. Yeah. And they really need to win that game to get back on track because I thought their game was pretty poor. Wingard was a surprise. He actually looked like a footballer for a change.
Well, he's had a good 6 weeks, Chad Wingard.
He has.
A little bit of talk about him coming back to Adelaide next season. I don't know whether... well, personally, I don't think he's the right fit. But he's certainly got plenty of good football left in him, I think.
I'd have him.
Yeah, I don't know. A bit flaky. Anyway, then we had the Cats getting over a gallant St Kilda. The Cats 13-7-85 to St Kilda 11-5-71, 14 points in the end. The Cats momentarily on top after that win.
Yep, good game actually. It was a real battle for both sides. Geelong was stronger. They had Cameron Smith come back in. And Dangerfield decided to put on one of his Dangerfield shows. And when he plays like that, he's a very, very hard man to beat, and which makes his team a very, very hard man to beat. Still was very, very good for the Saints in the first half, but he faded in the second half. And bear in mind, though, that Geelong have lost Stewart for the season, and that might hurt them in the finals. But anyhow, it was a pretty good game of footy overall. And as I said, Dangerfield outstanding. Cameron gets 4 goals. Geelong just that little bit better.
Yeah, just ticking along at the moment, Geelong. Can't quite get a read on them, but they keep winning. And then we had a weird game because when I turned on in the first quarter in the Port-Carlton game, I think Carlton were up. And I'm thinking, here we go. And then I didn't watch the game. I had some other stuff going on. And then I read the score, and it's 21-14, 140 to 5-15, 45, and Port have got up by 95 points. What the hell happened?
They got 5 points in the last half.
The last 2.5 quarters, Nikki.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
As PJ said, they were 4 goals up, and then Port started to get the run on, and then it just went on from there.
Yeah, 19 goals on the trot to nothing.
Wow.
You know,
Unbelievable.
and I know we're going to say much more about it because I hate Port, but but they did actually. Look, it's sad really because they got an easy kill. Their confidence will be high, and there wasn't much resistance from Carlton at all. Walsh, he could always hold his head up high. Kennedy, who they got from GWS, he played a reasonable game, but gee, nobody else, nothing there.
No, they're a horrific wreck of a club, as we've said before, and I'd hate to be supporting them. Anyway, Port have got the Bulldogs next week, haven't they? That's going to be a monster of a game, I think.
Excellent game. That'll sort it out a little bit, won't it?
Well, Port win, they go top, Port win, they've got a chance to go top. Bulldogs win, they've got a chance for top 2. Depending on what happens in the Melbourne Geelong game. So it's a very good final round with the top 4 playing each other. Very interesting.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Yep. Then we had the Lions getting up over Collingwood, 22-10, 1-42. The Collingwood side not quite doing as well as Carlton, only going down by 85 points, 8-9-57.
Yeah, look at the practice match. Sorry, Nikki.
I was just going to say, bloody Collingwood, if they'd, I was hoping that they kind of got a win so that we could take a step above us, but nah, bastards.
No, we've still got plenty of percentage on.
But for the Lions, it was just a practice match, really, and they did make the most of it. Neil got his form back, and Zorko, well, he's been playing pretty well all year, and for Clucky, he was a very nice draft pick with him. He's going to be a very, very good player.
Agreed. Danaher did all right.
Yep. Yeah, Joe, he's always gives you some entertainment, and he did do well. For Collingwood, well, you can't say much. Adams, Tagoe, Chris, and Sidebob, they got a few touches and probably stood out because they were in a bad team and the others didn't do anything.
Not much competition for views on that one. North Melbourne, at halftime they were all gone, and then I kept watching the scores and I thought, oh, will they? But eventually, no, they didn't. 12-5-77 going down to the Swans by 14 points, 13-13-91 and locking up Jason Horn.
Well, I only tuned into this into the last quarter, and North Melbourne were about 3 goals down, and then they got goal, and I'm starting to think, Horn,
Yeah.
and then City said, no, he kicked about 3 goals, and that was the end of the Horn dream. And look, a good effort by North Melbourne, and if both sides play up to form, there'll be a very interesting game against North Melbourne. It'll be interesting who wants to win and who doesn't want to win. North Melbourne can afford to win. We can't really afford to win because of Collingwood. So I would be making a few changes for our side next week.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that one. We'll get to that one, but
Collingwood are not winning next week.
No, who they got? They got Brisbane, haven't they, or someone?
They've got Essendon.
Essendon, that's right. Yeah.
And Essendon need to win for a chance to get in.
Speaking of Essendon, they just smacked the Suns by a lazy 68 points, 14-14-98 to the Suns 4-6-30. The Suns again tailing off at the business end of the season. Although they haven't been terrible this year, the Suns in patches, shown a little bit of something at times, but Essendon far too good.
Well, I think it was last week they won, wasn't it?
Yep.
The Suns, and then when you watch them play today, you wonder how the hell did they win a game? They're very, very ordinary, and I watched it for a while, and I got so tired of watching this pathetic football they were putting up. Eventually, I ended up tuning out for about the last half of the last quarter. I couldn't stand any more of it. Very ordinary effort by Gold Coast. Very ordinary.
Yeah, and I maintain Essendon still a danger team in that top 8 if they make the finals, and with the next result, it's seeming likely that they might actually, with the Dockers getting up. A weird game, this one. weird game. Dockers absolutely belted the Eagles in the first quarter, then decided to go home for 2.5 quarters, and then ended up hanging on by 15 points, 12-7-99 to 9-10-64.
Yeah, I saw somebody put in the chat that to give up 2 first-round draft picks for Kelly was not a very smart move by West Coast. And, when you look at what happened today, and they do need some fresh young blood in there as well. They're going nowhere, West Coast. They're in that sort of stage where we were when we're hanging around somewhere between 4th to 8th type of thing. And I think they're going to slide a little bit below that. So I think every club overestimates where they're at, and I think they overestimated where they were at.
I think you could probably forgive them for that, Macca. I must admit, I'm surprised at how much West Coast have tailed off this season. I thought they'd still be in the mix. So, I don't know. You're right. Teams do overestimate. We're a classic example of that. We overestimated our squad after 2017. But, I don't know. West Coast has still got some stars in that team.
No, they've got some very, very good players, but they're in their team. And they're aging. If you have a look at them, where about half their team is now getting very close to the stage where there isn't a lot of football left in them. I think they're going to end up sliding down the ladder in the next few years.
Yeah, so we have a look at the ladder, and that's not going to help anyone because it's not even fitting in the screen. But anyway, we have Melbourne on top on 66 points, Geelong, Port on 64, and the Bulldogs on 60. So I don't think, the only way Brisbane can get into that top 4 is if Port belt the Western Bulldogs next week.
Correct.
Sydney, even though they're also on 56 points, their percentage isn't near it. The Giants on 42, hanging precariously with a bad percentage, but half a game in hand, which is going to be handy. Essendon in the 8, probably the most deserved team, I reckon, around the 8 mark to be there on 107%, which is pretty good. Outside the 8 now, we've got the Eagles also on 40 points, Richmond on 36 points, along with St Kilda and Fremantle. Carlton on 32 points, Hawthorn on 30, marching up the table. Gold Coast on 28, Collingwood on 24, along with us, and we're 8% down on them, and then North coming last on 18 points, I should say. So, it looks like we've got pick 2, barring any catastrophe. But there's a lot of interest around the top of the table, obviously, with the top 4 playing against each other. And, Brisbane in with a sneaky, and a little bit of interest down around the 8 as well, with Essendon by far looking the stronger team. Now, who do they play next week? Let me have a look.
They play Collingwood.
So Essendon play Collingwood. They should win. Where else are we? Let me just have a look here. What do we got next week? We've got Eagles and Lions. The Lions, you would think, will put paid to West Coast's hopes. Carlton and the Giants. So you think the Giants would stay in the 8. Essendon and Collingwood. Well, Essendon will only have themselves to blame if they miss the 8 from here. The Cats of Melbourne will be a classic. One a very well organised team, and one a very strong team, in my opinion. But it's down at Geelong, so it'll be a test for Melbourne. Richmond and Hawthorn, I would back Clarkson in to make it. What would that make it? 4 in a row after his announcement? I reckon it's 4 on the trot.
Yep. That meant he's won 3 on the trot, and this would be 4.
Yep. St Kilda Freo, both of those need to win to have any stupid chance of getting in, although neither of them can, I don't think. Sydney and the Suns, you would think Sydney would want to have a good hit out prior to the finals. The Bulldogs and Port will be an absolute classic on a fast deck at Marvel. and it'll be interesting to see how Western Bulldogs bounce back leading into the finals, because the last couple of weeks have been a bit shaky. And then, obviously, what was going to be the Horn Francis Cup is now just the last game of the season for two teams that would rather forget 2021.
Yeah, the interesting thing about those two top matches you were talking about, the ones that are going to determine probably three matches that will determine the top four and the order of the top four, is that in the last few seasons we've had a bye, and then we have the finals, and for that reason, the clubs have been picking their best team for that last match of the year. Prior, when we didn't have a bye, they used to rest some of their good players.
Yep.
But this is an interesting situation, because the AFL are talking about the possibility of not having a bye and just going straight on with the finals. That would mean that these teams wouldn't have the luxury of resting their players, because it's going to determine where they finish.
Have they actually? I thought they actually decided not to have the bye, or is that still up in the air?
I thought it was up in the air, but they may have said they're not going to. What do you call it? Get rid of it. But I haven't seen it. That may be the case. I don't know, out there, they probably know better than us.
Yeah.
Anybody out there?
No. Yeah. Maybe.
Well, I know that they're actually talking about, because they want the grand final in front of a crowd, it's likely that the grand final is going to be in Perth.
Well, that's what they're talking at the moment. The whole issue of COVID is quite an interesting one, given that Melbourne is continuing to experience some outbreaks and some worrying numbers. You would think that what's likely to happen is that I reckon what might happen is that they might play the first 2 weeks of the finals in Melbourne, and then send everyone over to Western Australia. But how they're going to deal with Western Australia not imposing a 14-day quarantine is beyond me.
Yeah. So
Yep.
Adelaide is a possibility then.
Yeah, but we've got the same situation. Although I've just got to say this, right? This is nothing about footy, but you had the ASC coming out last week and cracking the shits because we made the South Australian Olympians do another 14 days. And even some of those Olympians came out and said, well, we understand why. But if the ASC were just so concerned about it, do you reckon they might have booked direct flights to Adelaide instead of sending their bloody South Australian kids to Sydney and making them go through a quarantine in the first place?
Yep.
Yep, I agree.
What an absolute load of bullshit. And all the uproar about, it's so inhumane and all the rest of it. Well, how about planning a bit better? Maybe just don't send them to South Australia, given that the last time we had someone come in from New South Wales, we had to lock down for 7 days. Anyway, enough of that. It just pissed me off. It really did. Anyway, but yeah, so I don't know. We seem to be a bit shunned with the whole, with the fact that we're quite strict with our lockdowns and our border policies, etc. I don't know where that's coming from. Our border policies, etc. But nevertheless, I don't think we'll be involved in the finals this year.
They have allowed corridors in there before, fly in, fly out. So, I mean, that happened with Carlton, for example.
The trouble is we've only got one venue, Mac. If we had a couple of... And I think one of the reasons why they want to keep it in Victoria is, first of all, to contain the teams, but two, because they've got 3 venues there. They've got GMHBA, they've got Marvel, and they've got the G.
No, I was talking about only about the grand final, because if we maintain COVID-free, it's a possibility, and if the GF was going to be in Adelaide, that they could have a full house and not have to quarantine.
I don't know, mate. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out anyway, because at the moment it's looking doubtful. Anyway, let's move on. And, of course, it was the Crows versus Melbourne today, and the Crows, after being in the hunt for a reasonable portion of the game, we ended up going down by 41 points, so 7 goals, really. 16-8, 104 to 9-9, 63. But as mentioned at the top of the show, I actually didn't mind it. I didn't mind the effort.
Effort was outstanding. I thought the effort was really good. It only died we did really die, or the mids died, and allowed the ball to come out very easy in about the last 5 to 8 minutes of the game when they got about 4 very easy goals and made it look a lot worse than it really was. It was a reasonably good game and not that big a margin all the game. In fact, if we kicked goals that we should have kicked, it could have been very, very close. We missed a lot of set shots that we should have kicked, and it's something we've done all year. Worked our asses off, got into a position where we should get a goal, and then just miss it and only get the one single effort, single point for it, rather than get the 6. But I thought that somebody says 23 points at the 23-minute mark in the last quarter, and that'd be about right.
Then our midfield decided they'd pack up early.
They did. I mean, there was no resistance to that ball coming out.
Not in the last 5 minutes, no.
No.
Unfortunately. Look, as usual, we'll go through the team selection first, and I don't think there was anything too dramatic about team selection, did you?
No. I don't think there was anybody there that they picked that they should, or anybody that's sitting in the twos that should have got a game. I think that I think they picked a side which was as balanced as they wanted. But somebody said Gallant should have got a run, and apparently he approached the coach and he asked for a game, but still didn't get one.
Well, I think Gallant specifically asked Nixie.
He did
to do a job on Jake Lever.
And
to be perfectly honest with you, Macca, why did we pick Tom Lynch? We just announced that we're not giving him a contract.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting thing because in principle you're right in the sense that why pick him when he's not going to be there anymore. I think the reason he's picked is to try and help the young lads so that we don't have... No, I just think it is just to make it a little bit more balanced for them so they don't feel like they're battling on their own. The more young lads you've got...
It doesn't matter. I mean, we've got D-Mac in the side who's played 950 seasons of AFL football and was still making the same mistakes he made when he started. Tom Lynch did what Tom Lynch does. He does a couple of good things. He gets a lot of the ball and he turns it over about 50% of the time.
And kicks into a man of the mark once.
What's the point?
Yeah.
There's no point. There's just absolutely no point. A perfect game, a perfect opportunity to give Lachie Gallant a bit of reward for his last 2 months of football and just put him in. There's just absolutely no excuse for it.
You asked me why they put him in. I would have gone along with you and put Gallant in, but I think this is what their thinking is.
Yeah,
I would have put personally. I would have, if I was the coach and Gallant approached me like that, and in the situation that we're in, that he's been playing well in the twos, I think he should have probably gone in, and I would have said, okay, mate, you reckon you can do it? You show me, and at least you would have had a youngster having a fair red hot crack, and. And you're quite right. The margin doesn't matter at all, really. But I think this is their thinking. Nick's. I don't think he likes to see his side get trashed because so the young guys don't drop their head, and I think that's why he keeps throwing in 1 or 2 senior players more than perhaps we would.
Yeah, the thing of it is, it didn't even make any sense from a selection point of view. Just the way they set up down back, it was never going to be something that Shane McAdam was going to be able to do as a fourth forward, to be able to lock Lever down or to make him accountable. And then you've got D-Mac and Lachie Murphy on the other half forward flanks. Never going to work. We needed a dedicated player. Just the same as we tried to do that for a little while on Alia the week before. But we could have kept Tom Lynch and dropped David McKay. We could have dropped Tom Lynch. We could have dropped Lachie Murphy, to be honest with you. either of those three players could have made way for Lachie Gallant. I think Lachie Gallant deserved a run, and I think it was stupid selection to keep him out.
Yeah, fair enough.
What do you reckon, Nick?
I agree with it. The fact that we knew that Rob was out with a knee injury and they were bringing Strawn in, I think Gallant should have had a chance. And the fact that he had the guts to go to the coach and say, I want to play and this is what I want to do. You know, how many young players actually have the guts to go to their senior coach and say that?
Harry Schomburg, about a month ago.
Yes.
Give me some time in the middle.
And look at what it's doing.
Exactly, Nick. And it worries me. It worries me that the coach needs to be approached by his players. And yes, it's a good story, the young lad who approaches the coach, blah, blah, blah. We've got 950 coaches around this squad, and they're paid to be able to make these decisions. It shouldn't take the player to go and plead with the coach to get an opportunity. It's just not right. Just not right. And while we're on people coming in, the last time Kieran Strawn played, I was scathing.
You were.
I said it didn't look like an AFL footballer. And whilst I didn't think it was by any stretch a perfect game, if you have a look at Maxi Gawn's numbers, you'll see that Kieran actually played quite wide of Gawn for long periods of the game. But I thought his ruck work was excellent, and I thought he gave us a little bit around the ground. So it certainly wasn't a terrible game by Kieran by any stretch, and he certainly looked far more likely this time round than he did last year.
Yeah, he ran out of petrol tickets in the last quarter. There's no doubt about that. But he would never have done that much running in his life, I don't think. But I was very irritated by the commentators in the right at the start of the game. The first two times that he went up against Gawn, they called Gawn getting the hit out when Strawn got the bloody hit out. I mean, I thought, give the lad some bloody credit.
Yeah.
And I thought at the start he was beating Gawn with that very long arm of his getting up there and tapping it. But as the game went on, I thought he tired because he obviously would not have played with this amount of pressure before. But he's not hopeless. I thought he did a reasonably good job.
If he was actually able to get involved more aerially around the ground, he'd be a better option than O'Brien because he's a far better ruckman.
Yes.
Than Riley O'Brien. He showed some variety in his tap work, different hit zones, wasn't put off by Gawn, and even that young lad who's probably going to win the Rising Star did pretty well against him as well. Just probably didn't have as much of an impact around the ground as Riley, but did enough to make you suggest that maybe he could, given a string of games. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. And, I'm happy to eat my words on that one because I actually was surprised he was kept on the list last year, but he seems to have come on a little bit more and doing quite well.
He's been playing well in the SNFL. Rucking there, he's probably been close to the dominant ruckman in the SNFL for probably about a year and a half.
Yeah, that didn't seem to translate last time, Nick, but
no,
could certainly see it this time around. I'm happy to be proven wrong by players. We'll talk about a couple of players that I feel have proven me wrong, and maybe a few other pundits as well tonight. But he was certainly one of them. All right, let's have a look at some head-to-head now while I'm getting all this set up. Don't forget, if you are in the live studio audience, don't forget to get around the chat if you want to have your say. Put your virtual hand up, and we will certainly be happy to have you on the live studio chat. So don't be shy. All right, let's have a look at some head-to-heads. Disposals. And it was Melbourne 352 to us 386. 215 to 220 handball kicks were about right. We had a few more handballs, 137 to 166. I hate the way the screen does this all the time. Inside 50s though, 59 to 47 in Melbourne's favour. Disposal efficiency both up around the 70 to 75 mark, which was fine. 21 shots from 47 inside 50s, not too bad a return. Free kicks, I'm not saying the umpires cost us the game, but they were bloody shit today. And 26 to 18 in Melbourne's favour. They certainly didn't have... They were shit.
Can somebody... Yeah, yes, they were. And can somebody actually please get them a tape measure and show them what 15 metres actually is and what 20 metres is? Because they were continually thinking that 20 metre plus kicks went only for 15 metres. And there was a case of 2 of them actually happened where there was one that was definitely the first long kick, which was at least 20, if not more, got called as play on, and yet the next kick, which was much closer to 15 metres, fuck. And I'm just like, same umpire, 2 immediate kicks after the other, and you've got no idea of distance already, dude.
Oh, my thunder, Nick, I was going to raise that very one, because we kicked the one that was play on, and they managed to get the ball back off us and kicked it about 12 metres if it was lucky, and that was called a mark. And these umpires, they said in the chat that it wasn't so much they were biased, but every 50-50 decision went Melbourne's way. Well, there were 3 goals at least given to Melbourne in their forward line for frees that just weren't there. Not 50-50, just weren't there. And I thought we really did get a very, very raw prawn from the umpires.
A raw prawn. I tell you what, if you want to see a raw prawn, you watch the umpiring performance over in the Derby. My God, did those umpires want bloody West Coast to get up over the line? They made some shockers. They made some shockers. Anyway, hit-outs 47 to 28, as you'd expect in Melbourne's favour. Clearances were even, 34-36, 14-11 in centre, which isn't a bad outcome considering their engine room. And very good around stoppage, 20 to 25. Contested possession, dead even. We had much more of the ball on the outside. You can see basically time and possession though. Melbourne had more of the ball for the match, but which is kind of weird considering possession was fairly even. 92 to 97 marks, 12 marks each inside 50. That's the best marks inside 50 we've had for ages. And 9 to 14 contested marks. I can't remember the last time we were up on contested marks. Intercepts even. So tackles 77 to 63. Anytime you get over 60, it's not a bad effort. Tackles inside 50 for the first time in a while. We got over double figures, but it was still a bit lacking, I believe. 1%ers shows Melbourne 42 to 38. It didn't seem to have a big impact. So not a huge amount to be gleaned from those team stats. We did seem to get the ball a bit on the outside and had more uncontested possessions, but I think that was actually the way we were trying to play the game and trying to get through Melbourne's defences. It didn't often work, and we did turn it over a little bit at the half-forward line. That's how I saw it.
Well, I think in terms of the game, I think most of it was, except for that last bit when they got the last 3 or 4 goals so easily out of the centre. If you just leave that out of the conversation, I thought that we played every bit as well as they did, except that when they had opportunities to get a goal, they got one, and we had many, many opportunities to get a goal that we just absolutely blew. And if we'd kicked them, it would have been absolutely scores locked away, and maybe even us slightly in front. I just thought that we wasted so many opportunities in the forward line.
For me, what I quite liked, particularly when you were talking about the midfield stuff, I liked how we set up when we knew we were setting up for the spoil for a mark, and the way we would then flick the handballs around, and the positioning was actually quite good and then proactive, which helped a lot. And there were a couple of those handballs through traffic, like with bodies and everything else. So sometimes it didn't quite work and they picked it off, but it was nice to really see how proactive and attacking that was. as Surface has said, Schoenberg wasn't used by some of her mids when the handball was on, which was true. We sometimes some of those older mids would do the safety go backwards instead of that forward one. It was when our younger players were often involved that we were doing that handball forward, just keep doing it till we can get that breakout player on the outside. And that was really nice to see.
I agree with you, Nikki, and that's exactly how it was. And there was some excellent bit of play, because occasionally that goes astray, and when it does go astray, it can go bang and reverse and get you. And that happened a couple of times.
Yeah, we did get done a little bit we got caught on the break a little bit, which was unfortunate. I think Melbourne's first couple of goals actually were exactly that, catching us, just on the break, and we're just ahead of the ball, and that's you're not going to bag a team for trying to run ahead of the ball, which is what we were doing to good effect for large portions of that first half. But when we did miss a handball, and again it was the senior players that were hitting the toes with the handballs more often than not, we tend to get penalised quite heavily by Melbourne on that one.
Yeah, your mate Lynch did a couple of very nice handballs, but he also did a couple at the feet, which were very costly as well.
And that's Tommy all over. He'll do some really nice things, but he overrates himself. There was one kick that he tried to do, I think it was in the third quarter, where he was on the half-forward line just outside the 50, and he just tried to thread it through, and there was just no way he was ever going to make that kick. It was such a low percentage kick. And unfortunately, that's what Tom does more often than not. He just goes for the low percentage, and not only does it not come off, but it catches everyone out of position, and we often get burnt by those turnovers.
Yeah, I had a chuckle when you said that, because I knew that was going to come up. But you're right. He does overestimate his own ability, and he really does. I mean, the handball that he shot out that got us a goal at the goal square, that was just brilliant.
It was fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, and that was so quick and fast. That was a quality handball. You rarely see one as good as that. But he also, you don't see as many as bad as some of the ones that he put at their feet as well, which then usually resulted in a turnover. So, yeah, I think he does overestimate himself. I think, a lot of footballers probably do.
I disagree. I think players are taught to play the percentages more so these days than in any other era of football. But Tom doesn't play the percentages.
No, I think you're right. In this era that we're coming, all the lads coming through, the younger ones don't overestimate themselves, but some of the experienced ones like Lynchy do. And he can, as I said, he can do some really good things, but when he starts up, it can be very costly as well. But he'll get picked up by another team. There's no doubt about that, unless he is being lined up as a coach internally.
I reckon he's got a couple of seasons left in him somewhere.
Oh, he has, in terms of playing, but there's been a little bit of talk about the possibility of him staying with the club in the capacity of probably, not an assistant coach, a development coach, perhaps.
Yeah, I guess it depends. He's not going to get $1 million for being a coach.
He'll be cheap.
And, he might be able to get 2 or 3. He's only 30. He might get 2 or 3 more seasons out of his body at, $350 a season. So that's not money to be sneezed at. So I wouldn't mind betting that he plays on, and maybe he will eventually obviously be a coach. The Crows would love to have him, but I think, he's going to chase some money as he should.
And probably one of the best things if we do want to get him back in as a coach, like we have done with Van Berlo, go elsewhere, experience another club.
Very good point, Vicky. I think
and then come back.
You do get a lot of benefit from playing in another club, even if it's a bad club. You know what not to do.
Yeah.
Well,
the other thing,
I would suggest that Van Berlo has been the least successful of our coaches this year. If you have a look at the CBAs. Haven't been impressed. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, I just going to one of the other points where you talked about, and it's something that I've noticed from so many of those older senior players, is that consistent handballing to the feet. And we've done that for years.
Correct.
And it's driven me absolutely freaking nuts for years. And I'm so pleased to actually finally see these younger players that have learned how to actually handball at the chest and to the player's advantage as they're running forward. It's just driven me nuts. So it's, as much as some of these players have been great servants for the club, everything else, now is the time definitely to show them the door.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about what you're saying there, Nikki, is that I heard an interview with one of the midfielders from the Bulldogs, and they are very, very slick with their handballs, and 9 times out of 10 they get it on their chest. And often when they're really in form, they're throwing it around maybe 4 or 5 handballs in the middle, and which eventually gets them out into the open. And apparently they spend a long period of time every training night doing that. So
they have a club. They have a club, Macca. It's called the Handball Club. And through the off season, they have a handball club, and that's all they do.
Yeah, well, they really handball to the feet. I mean, obviously, you make a mistake now and again, but their dominance is really good handballs.
Yep, handballs to the right side of a player, handballs to advantage, handballs in the target zone between the knees and the shoulders. You don't see the Bulldogs fluff handballs, and it's not only not fluffing handballs, but receivers or potential receivers are always got their hands up ready. They're always ready. Yeah. They never fumble a quick handball. They do some lightning stuff, and you very rarely see them double grab too. It's just one of their traits. All right, let's have a look at some individual stats. Mr. Seedsman. We had good seed today. 36 disposals, 20 kicks, 16 handballs, 3 marks, 1 tackles, 8 contested possessions, 28 uncontested possessions. Let's have a look here at what else he did. Radio seeds. He had 2 clearances, 10 inside 50s if you don't mind, 750 metres gained, 10 score involvements, which is excellent. What's IP? I don't even know what that is. Had 4 of them though. But doesn't it make a difference when the bloke that gets it 30 odd times drops his eyes and uses the ball, Macca?
Yeah.
Doesn't it make a difference?
Certainly does, and he generally does. I know he's not your favourite cup of tea, but I think he has had a great season overall, actually, and I think he'll be very, very high up in our best and fairest. And today, I think he was at his very, very best today. He did long kicks, he did short kicks, but he was a very good user of the ball today, I thought.
I just want to focus on this. I've just got his heat map up here, and this is what you want. All these possessions, if you can see my little mouse thing here, all these possessions between centre and the 50-metre arc, and that's where you want your forward 50 entries to come from, that 60 to 65 metre out arc. And Seedsman, when he's used correctly, and when he actually looks to spot up, he's very, very damaging. And I was very happy with his work today, and if he did that all the time, Mac, you just it'd be a different kettle of fish for Seeds if he just did that all the time.
Yeah, well, his game was really spot on today, and he's had others like it too, Fane. And yes, he's had games where he's been a bit more reckless with his kicking, but excellent game by him today. Excellent.
Nick, what do you think?
Particularly that first quarter, and the way we were bringing the ball in, it was very deliberate about how we were bringing that ball into the forward line to try and make sure Lever couldn't set up, or we were trying to bring it in quite fast so that their whole defence couldn't set up. So it was lovely to see that, and you're spot on. He was really lowering his eyes nicely. Some of the stuff he was doing on that outside, there was that run through a number of times. He started to get a little bit more quiet as the game wore on, because I think they tried to get back on top in that area, because otherwise we really were. Some of those goals were, those shots on goal were going to turn into goals and be quite a problem for them. But it was the good seed. You were right. And I was, as soon as he started playing well and the commentators started praising him, I thought of you, Fiend. I thought of you.
I did too.
Well, all I've ever asked of him is to just lower the eyes. Like, I've been scathing of him because he hasn't lowered his eyes. It's been a trait where him kicking down the line has just been irrelevant. And this week he lowered the eyes from his first kick inside 50, where he'd spotted up someone about 45 metres out. He just did it pretty much the whole game, and that's all I ask from him. That's all I want from him. You know, and if they can get him, if they can utilise him like that, and he gets the ball 36 times, Macca, that's an amazingly powerful weapon to have in your side. Someone who can get it that often on the outside and use it well. It's when he doesn't use it well, and when he plays too deep in defence and behind the defensive 50, that's when we lose any value out of him.
Well, I agree. He was actually getting the ball in a much better position, as you say, slightly ahead of centre, which makes him so much more damaging. When he's in defence, he's still doing his job, but it doesn't have the same effect in terms of damage to the other team.
And that's the big thing. You've got to play the players in the position that they're going to hurt the opposition the most, or make us the most difficult to play on. Do you know what I mean? And Seedsman in that role, where and we'll just show his heat map again, and you can see there, like, the amount of possessions forward or near centre and on the wing, is such a difference than having him back across half back and just pumping it up the line, and Lockie Murphy going for a hang. So really happy with his game, and really happy with how Seeds was played, how he was used, whether by design or whether that's just how the game panned out. Quite happy with that. Look, of the midfielders, Benny Keys had 29 touches, 14 kicks, 15 handballs, 11 tackles, doesn't give up, as we know, 16 contested possessions. What do we think of Ben's game?
I thought it was a classic Ben Keys game. It's not a refined game. He's not a refined player. He's a player who is probably limited in his ability, in his natural ability, compared to the real guns of the midfielders. But he gives 100%, and if you can give more than 100%, he gives that too, and compensates for his lack of class by the amount of effort that he puts into it. He puts his body on the line so many times, and he wins some very, very hard balls. I thought he got a couple of hard calls from the umpires today.
I agree with you there. I thought he got done a couple of times.
Yeah, twice. And but I like his game every week because he gives 100%. And he doesn't always use the ball as well as others, but you have to take that into account. That's what he's got. So he gives you 100% of what he's got.
23 centre bounce attendances, Mac. What do you make of that?
Well, I think he's required there because of his physicality.
There were 25 centre ruck clearances for the game, and he attended 23 of them.
Well, I think we're obviously using him in that physical capacity, you know, either to get the ball to try and stop the other from getting the ball, to help Lairdy or whoever. He wouldn't be there just because. He'd be there for a reason.
Oh, I know he's there for a reason.
And I'm saying that, but that's what my thinking is. The fact is that he's either desperate to get the ball, or if anybody else gets the ball from the opposition, he's desperate to tackle them, and or if Lairdy's got it, he's happy to help him out where he can. So, no, I just think he's good value.
Let's have a look at Lairdy. 28 touches, 12 kicks, 16 handballs, 7 tackles. Also got a lot of the ball around half forward and on the wing. 57% of his possessions forward of centre. Disposal efficiency just under 70%. 8 contested possessions. 20 uncontested possessions. Unusual, actually, for Rory to have that high disparity between contested and uncontested posies. So that was interesting. 8 score involvements. Let's just have a look at his centre. So he attended 20 of a possible 26 centre bounces. 3 clearances, 1 centre clearance out of 20 attendances.
Sorry, the other thing with Keys too, he's got a massive engine on him, Fane. That's the other thing, that he can keep going, whereas some of the others can't. So that'd be one of the other reasons.
Oh no, I would think that someone who's been in the AFL system for 7 or 8 years has a good enough engine.
But they still vary.
Well, Laird has, Sloane has.
Simon, he was a lot better too today. Coming back to Laird, no, I thought Laird was a fairly typical Laird game. Although, as you say, he got a little bit more out in the open possessions, but I still think he goes out the oval every time to give 100%, and even if he had a bad game, he's given 100% because that's the way he's made. But him and Keys, they're not classy midfielders. They're working midfielders, and at least they're going to give you 100% of what they got.
Nick?
For me, I like the pair of them, but the problem is, as you're highlighting there, we shouldn't have both of them in at the same time for what they're doing. They're good for what they are. They're the heart. They're the triers. They've shown that they can get the ball. Problem is their disposal, and it's going to take a while or in some cases, we won't be able to fix that. But for me, they should be the secondary midfielders with our top rung fast midfielders like Schoenberg and whoever we can hopefully pick up in the draft. That's what I want to see from them. You cannot fault either of their endeavour, and you cannot fault the fact that they know how to get the ball. It's our problem is with our midfielders, they're not fast. When we come up against midfields who are quality fast midfields, as they tire, they just can't go with them. And that's where we get in trouble.
Yeah. Let's have a look at Slady. 25 touches, 16 and 9. Probably his most proactive game for a while, I thought, from Rory. 9 tackles, 7 marks. Got a lot of it around the midfield. 15 contested possessions, 10 uncontested, 5 intercept possessions, had 7 score involvements, 6 uncontested marks, only 285 metres gained, but he was very much playing that hit-up midfield target on transition. 3 centre clearances from how many attendances? 25 attendances. 25 attendances. 3 centre clearances out of 25 attendances.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons probably why he was getting more of the ball, but he's still not Sloane that was, our champion Sloane. I thought he was useful today, and he was noticeable for a change, but he put in, and he did put in great effort, etc. And he's always got courage. So I'd say he played a handy game, but not a dominant game.
Right. So Petrarca got 4 centre clearances, Keys 4, Gawn 3, Sloane 3, Oliver 2, Sparrow 2, Jackson 2, Schonenberg 2, Brayshaw 1, blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, I guess in the context of the game, Sloane's wasn't a bad effort getting 3. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, Sloane, I think this was one of Sloane's better games this year.
Yeah, it definitely was.
And there were a couple, there was one error, very glaring error, but once I actually saw the replay, I can understand why he didn't go in hard at that ball because of the way Langdon was coming at him head on. And with the new rules and everything else, he had to slow down and he had to turn, and that made him miss the ball. So that was okay. I thought his getting involved, as you said, and reading out those clearance numbers, we actually did pretty damn good getting clearances out of the centre up against that midfield.
Yep.
With those three slower players who were not what I would call class.
Yep. I don't have numbers for scores from clearances, but I think most of our scores actually came from turnovers, if I remember rightly. Yeah.
Well, our first six goals definitely all came from turnovers.
Yeah. Now, one player who I thought I would have actually given him our best player today, and that was Ned Mchenry. I would have given him our best player over, probably second best after Seaman. 22 touches, 8 kicks, 14 handballs, 8 marks. Got around the ground a fair bit, very much on the wings. Spent a lot of time linking up and trying to create off the halfback and off the wing. 7 contested possessions. Let's have a look. 3 score involvements, 8 marks. What do you guys think of Ned's game?
I've had to eat a lot of humble pie over Ned Mchenry. I mean, last year I really bagged the living shit out of him and said he was never going to be a footballer's backside. And look, he was just like a little angry ant running around just picking fights here and there. But as this season progressed, I just think he's just got better and better. And I agree with you, Pete. I think he was our second best player today. And I thought he was our dominant forward. He travelled a lot of ground to get himself into the game. And I thought he used the ball pretty well, and he set up a lot of good passages of play. So, as I said, I've had to eat humble pie and say, I've probably taken too high in the draft. I haven't backed down on that yet. But, he's a reasonably good player, and today I thought he was very good.
Nick?
I've always liked him. I've seen what he's been able to do as a midfielder in the SANFL, and that the way he will will himself into a contest, particularly that goal from Murphy, is purely and utterly was Mchenry. Yep. Just keeping his feet, even though he's little, he's quite strong, and the way he was moving his feet, but to stay upright and keep his arms free, with 3 Melbourne players, well, one's tackling him and another 2 around him, to then get it out at the right time. He's got a really good football brain, which we haven't always seen. And I just really liked his effort from today. Normally we lament the fact that they're having to push up higher, but I think unfortunately with Himmelberg going down, it actually made our forward line work a little bit better because we pushed Fogg too full forward and kept him there, which helped. And then that allowed, there wasn't as much, I think, congestion of the wrong players going at the wrong time higher up the ground, and Ned getting involved a bit more.
But even though
I just really like to see that.
Yeah, even though Lever got a lot of intercepts still, I think we did make an effort to try and lower the eyes and short kick and handball through transition to get, and that shows by the amount of possessions that were sort of 60 out of our goals. We tried to run it through to that spot rather than bomb it long. And McHenry was instrumental in that. He'd often have 2 or 3 possessions in a chain as we were trying to run the ball through the wing area. The reason why I went through that centre bounce attendances is that I can't work out why a kid that is obviously having a good game and is showing tenacity and creativity and all the rest of it, why he didn't get a bit of a run at centre bounce.
An excellent point, mate, and one I'm totally in agreement with, because at the moment, the way that he is scrapping for the ball and breaking away from players and bursting through, I think he should have been given a go. I mean, Harry Schonberg, he showed what he could do, and he had to ask for the spot as well. he's going to be a very good player in time, and it just would put another string to Ned's bow if he could do that. And I think, in fact, he used to always play as a midfielder. It's my understanding. So
he played him as a mid in the twos.
Yeah, but as a junior as well.
Yeah,
and so I really would like to see him have a crack in there. It's just you just give him a few every game, just give him 2 or 3, just see how he goes. If he's successful, you give him a few more next week, and so on. So I'm 100% with you. But as somebody says in the chat, he just Dick just seems to love that trio in the centre: Laird, Keys, and Sloane. And while they might be 3 very good footballers, it's not a great mix for a midfield in terms of speed and et cetera, et cetera.
The interesting thing was, though, at the start of the year when we were winning those games and causing problems for those teams higher up the ladder, we were having Berry, and even Mchenry was actually doing midfield minutes.
There was a few. Yeah, he did have a few minutes. Yeah.
We had a lot more dynamic kind of going through there. We were giving those younger players a chance to actually play where they have played most of their career, instead of putting them at the death knell of the half forward line. And now towards the end of the season, we've gone away from doing that, and I think that's when we've started to. We haven't been able to stay in games for long enough because they've stuck with that standard, and Harry's just dared them to drop him from that rotation. They can't. He's doing too well.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Harry, let's have a quick look. It was a quieter game, but my impression was that he was running with Petrarca a bit. Was I just seeing things? Or did you guys see that, Sue?
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah.
Which I actually think was really good, because that's the type of player I kind of see him as.
Well, wasn't it last time we played Melbourne that he ran with Oliver for a half?
He did.
Yeah. Anyway.
And he said he said he learned a lot out of doing that. And I would say that running with Petrarca, he would have learned a lot more again today. So, and he's a kid that wants to learn. So, we can see he's going to be a good AFL player. But if he's that keen to learn from other good players around him by running with them and observing what they do and how they do it, yeah, he could be an even better player than he would have otherwise.
Yeah. Well, he's not going to win a Brownlow without learning from the best, Mac, and considering he's going to win a Brownlow, then, that's obviously a stepping stone. 16 touches, 6 kicks, 10 handballs, 3 marks, 2 tackles. He was a bit quiet today. I felt like he was being led to the ball a fair bit, Harry, today. 7 contested possessions, turned it over a couple of times, but not too bad by his standards. 5 score involvements. So just a game from Harry this week. But again, 16 centre bounce attendances was good for pardon me, 2 centre clearances. So it wasn't certainly our worst, but probably not quite as noticeable as maybe the last month or so.
Yeah, one of his quieter games compared to what he's been doing the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Of the rest, let me have a look here. Geordie Butts was excellent, I thought, after quarter time on Ben Brown. I thought Ben Davis showed a little bit, just to make things a bit interesting in list management discussions in the off-season. Nick Murray, again, had a pretty solid game. David McKay, don't know why he was playing. Darcy Fogarty, let's have a bit of a chat about Darcy Fogarty, because I think it's probably the first 4-quarter game that I've seen Darcy play for quite some time.
Agree.
Yeah, I was kind of reasonably happy with his game. Could have been a little bit more productive, but it was certainly, you're right in saying that he looked like he wanted to be involved for the whole 4 quarters, which is a bit of a change, because sometimes you see him missing for a whole half and you're not even noticing that he's out there. So, I was pretty happy with that, with that part of his game. I thought we didn't always use him correctly. When a couple of times he made a reasonable good lead and we didn't get it quite right. And also sometimes he got a little bit too close to Lever. He should stay well away from Lever because that made it even harder again. But overall, I thought, he gets a tick. I thought it was a pretty good game.
I liked the way he was, a lot of his movement and his leads. A couple of times he tried with some of that body work. It didn't quite work, but you could see what he was trying to do, and he was judging the fall of the ball quite well. They do have some excellent marking defenders. So the performance we got out of him, knowing that how quite good their defence is, I was really pleased to see. And you're right. It was a 4-quarter effort, and I think putting him in the goal square is the right spot for him. Absolutely the right spot.
I'm sorry, but how long have I been saying give Darcy the keys and play him inside the forward 30?
Yep.
Probably only 2 years.
And I wonder whether him being engaged for 4 quarters is in any way related to the fact that he knows that he's got to run at it for the next 6 weeks or the next 6 games. He's basically been given the keys. Yes, Himmelberg went down, but Darcy was looking good even before Elliott went down. And I just need...
Yep.
I just need to see more of it from Darcy. I mean, look, if we got 12 disposals and 3 goals, one with 7 marks from Taylor Walker, would be all jumping down saying he's a legend of the game.
Yeah,
that's what we got from Darcy Fogarty today, and I think people will underestimate it. If we got that output from Tex today, we would all be singing Tex's praises.
No doubt about it. I think he's certainly he's played his role well, and he's done his job. No doubt about that.
I don't actually think... I think that underestimates what we got from Fogarty, because we got a Tex-like performance from Fogarty today, Mac. He was throwing his weight around. Yep. He was imposing himself physically. He was doing a lot of stuff off the ball, and he hit the scoreboard.
Yeah, I'm in agreement.
He was taking contested marks. Yeah, you're in agreement with me, but very low key. It's the best game I've seen Darcy Fogarty play for a long time.
I think, only the reason I'm a little bit low key, I think if he's allowed to play in this manner, where he is the main man there in the goal square and not competing with Tex, etc., I just think there's even better in him. I think there's a lot better in him. I think that we can get some really big games out of him. I think he's got a lot to offer.
Yep. Lockie Murphy, how many marks did we see him fly for this week?
I can remember one.
I can remember 4.
Well, I didn't even notice him 4 times, man. That was a problem.
There was a couple on the wing. There was one deep in the forward line, and then there was one on the outer side, I remember.
I remember the one on the forward line and on the outer side.
What was his total tally of possessions?
Well, the one deep, Macca, if it has actually stayed down, he might have got a crumb, and that is my point. He had 11 disposals, 6, 7 and 4, 2 tackles, 3 contested possessions. I don't actually know what he's there for. I don't know what purpose he's serving. I know he gives us a lot. I know he does. I'm not at any stage bagging him for the... Whoops, what the hell have I done here? Bagging him for his effort or anything like that. But the guy just doesn't give us enough, and he plays the wrong role. In my opinion. He should never be going for a mark, and I saw him go for marks continually again today. 3 turnovers, only 4 score involvements. It's time we moved on from Lockie Murphy, I'm afraid, in my opinion.
Yeah, they would line him up
inside 50.
I would line him up and make him stand next to a ruckman, look in the mirror so he could see what bloody size he is, so he wouldn't keep flying in the air all the time. No, you're quite right. His job is on the ground mostly, but no, I was surprised when you said that he had that number of possessions, because I didn't really notice him that much.
Well, it's only 11.
Yeah, when you spread it over 4 quarters, it's not much, is it?
No. Half of what
I'd say Murphy's like a little terrier in that he thinks he's a Great Dane. because all those little dogs always think they're big dogs, and he needs to understand
you don't see
he's
Ned
a little dog.
McHenry flying for marks. I mean, Lockie Murphy, surely he's looking at the tape. Surely he's assessing his own performance and going, "Jesus, if I'd have stayed down there, I could have got that crump." The one in the forward line was a classic where the ball was going over the back, and he's chosen to fly over the back. And if he'd have stayed down, it would have just about fallen into his lap. You know, and there's a scoring opportunity. Instead, all he does is bring his opposition player into the game because his opponent stays down.
That's a very good point. Yeah, because it's doubly bad, isn't it?
Exactly. So I don't understand. I know Lockie gives 100%, and I respect him for that. But that's not the only KPI in AFL football. You've got to actually be worthwhile. Riley Thilthorpe, I thought patchy. He's clearly looking for the finish line this year. I worry sometimes that he's got a bit of resting bitch face about him. He gets very down on himself, and I feel like he's not attacking the ball in the air. I think unless Riley feels he's in the perfect position at the moment, he kind of gives up on the contest a little bit. But that'll come with age and strength, I think.
Yeah. And to me, that's a bit of a confidence thing, but I think it's also the way he's been bashed around a bit, and he just seems that little bit of hesitant just to make a contest when he should be making a contest with that body of his. But as the game went on, he got better and got more involved.
Yes, I was going to say, Nick, I thought if you analyse his game into two halves, I thought his first half was very, very, very ordinary. And exactly Glenn described it to a T. I thought his second half, I think he must have been shitty with himself because he tried a hell of a lot harder. He tackled a few times and he actually spoiled a lot of balls. And I thought that he actually made some positive contribution in the second half, whereas in the first half, I thought we got very little, if anything, out of him at all. Look, he's a kid.
Exactly.
He has shown us how good he is, and he showed that in his first game.
Yeah.
Once he's got about 50 to 60 games behind him, he's going to be some footballer.
Yeah, and that little mark he took on the lead was just showed, the power of the kid getting out in front and taking the ball in his stride. And even the commentators sort of made a little gasp because it just looked so impressive. And we know what we've got in store for Riley. I just hope the kid doesn't get too down on himself. I actually think we're watching a kid who's been used to being able to utilise his size at lower grades and maybe in junior grades, and is struggling with the fact that that's no longer a key point of difference between him and his opponents.
And also the fact that being young, and he is young, having every week coming up against the crash and bash, big physical bodies who probably have been in the game about 8 to 10 years, a lot more than you have, and they can hurt you when they hit you. Yeah. So that eventually wears you down, and you don't even probably realise it yourself, but every week you go out there, you're just that little bit less better. You're not quite as good.
Yeah.
And eventually you get to the stage where he got to where they had to rest him for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yep. And let's be honest, he shouldn't be back in this team. He should have been put out to pasture for the rest of the season, maybe running the twos. But we've seen enough. So I'm not by no means giving Riley a hard time. But I do think that there's a little bit of aggression when the ball's coming in over his head that he needs to work on in the off season.
Yep.
Shane McAdam, I thought, was a pointless exercise. I've just lost whatever excitement I had about Shane has gone. Yes, he kicked 2 goals, but one of them was a Joe the Goose, and one was off a good lead, I think. But he just doesn't offer enough. He had 10 disposals, 5 kicks, 5 handballs, 4 marks, only the 1 tackle. He's a direct contributor to our lack of forward 50 tackles.
I'll give him credit for one of the goals. One goal was that beautiful handball from Lynch that when he fired out 100 mile an hour, right on his chest so that he could run straight at goal. And the other one, he ran about 50 to 100 yards, metres to get to the position where Fogarty did that beautiful pass to him so he could just take the market and run into goal. But he ran from at least the centre of the ground down there to get that.
Didn't that kick of Fogs remind you of a Tex field kick?
Oh, exactly. It was beautiful. Beautiful to watch.
Yeah, we've got such a Tex clone with Darcy.
We do.
I think McAdam could have given away for Lockie Gallant, but that's just my view. I don't think he's best 22 in the long run. So, any other players you want to talk about?
I thought your mate Kelly.
Yeah.
I'd like your opinion of his, I just like your opinion of his game feed.
Oh, look, he got towed up in the last, but let's not forget he got a knee to the head.
Well, that's true, actually. I suppose I'm being a little bit unkind because he did get towed up in the end. And I suppose I still stick it. Every time he's caught the ball, and he can earn some good balls too, he just holds it so bloody long. There was
one point where he had it halfway in transition. I think he was on the wing, had a bit of space around him, and he just stood there. I saw he ignored two good leads, and then he just bombed it in.
That's probably the one that really got me upset about with him today. I usually try and stick up for him where possible, but I found him indefensible in that particular issue, and that sort of turned me against him a little bit. But he did get that nasty hit in the head, so
wasn't having a great game up to then, but he did get a fairly heavy knock. I was actually surprised to see him back out on the ground, but Fritsch certainly stitched him up before then, and then in the last one they were just waltzing it out of the middle. I mean, Kelly's not the type of player. Kelly wasn't really the right matchup for Fritsch, but unfortunately we probably didn't have anyone who was.
See, for me, Davis was actually the right matchup for Fritz. Kelly's not in the side, and you have somebody like a Worrell or, depending on how they've set up the other ones, if you need the smaller one, then Hamill would have been more ideal as a replacement for there.
Probably because you have to have pace to go with him because he's he's very quick off the mark, and if you're giving him just a little start, you can't catch him, and that's exactly how he was taking the ball very easily indeed.
Yeah, that's right. And we all know it's hard for a defender when it's getting laced out into an open forward line. It's almost impossible. I felt like Benny Davis actually did a pretty good job on Cozzy Pickett, although I feel like Melbourne were playing Cozzy away from goals, which was unusual. I don't know what they were doing there. Maybe just messing around with something. But we didn't see a lot of Cozzy, and I'll give Ben the tick for that. Saw a little bit of chase.
I was just going to talk about one of the other forwards as well, who probably didn't have too many stats, but we just still saw some nice glimpses for him in Cook.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't get a lot of it, to be honest with you, Braden. He only had the 6 touches and didn't hit the scoreboard. But when he gets the ball, and he'll get it a lot more often as his career progresses, but when he gets the ball, you can just see a little bit of class about him, which I really like.
Yeah.
And so what do you think his future is, Fane?
Well, in terms of what?
With us.
Well, I think we've already discussed that, haven't we? I don't think there's any doubt he's got a future with us.
Yeah, fair enough. Sorry.
Second game in, you cut the guy some slack playing against the top team. He's definitely got a future with us. He's going to be a very handy forward wing type player who can sneak up and kick a goal, in my opinion.
Yeah, but do you think he's going to be a regular next year?
Oh, of course he is.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he be?
Well, he's shown good glimpses at this stage, and I suppose when you're coming into against Harden. Well, in this game in particular, against a very quality team, I suppose it is hard to get the ball. But I think he's shown that he's got some quality about him, and if he can produce that for a full game, he could be very good.
Yeah, well, you don't get you don't get many debuts having 17 touches, Mac.
No, actually, last week was very, very good. I thought. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So definitely got a future with us. I would have liked to have seen his mate Lockie Gallant, as I mentioned, come in as well, but Braden had to earn his stripes in the twos. He's still pretty slight. He needs to hit the gym in the off season, and probably for the next couple of off seasons, I would imagine. But I think he'll always be a fairly light-footed but classy half forward type, maybe wing. Definitely part of the future, in my opinion.
So you're talking about Gallant now?
No, I'm talking about.
Sorry, because you mentioned Gallant. I got. I was going to probably say I was thinking Gallant because I was going to say to you that you reckon he should have got a game today, and he probably should have. Do you think he's going to be part of our future, Fane?
Well, I don't know, Mac, because we haven't seen him. How can we possibly make a call if we haven't seen him? I mean, he looks great in the twos, in my opinion.
I know, but there aren't that many players left that aren't re-signed.
No, I know, and that's a concern, isn't it? And it makes you wonder whether that's why, there's an issue there, whether there's a correlation between his contract status and the fact that he hasn't been given a run, whereas just about every other junior now, except Fish, and I think it's Fish should be the only other kid that we've got, I think, that hasn't had a run this season. It makes you wonder.
Yeah, I mean, even Ben Davis getting a run, and what do you think? Well, 3 games in 5 years, and yet I didn't think he was all that bad today, Ben Davis. But I can't see a permanent role there for him because he actually filled in where there was a hole today. With Smith out.
I could definitely see a role for him as a running halfback flanker Macca. I think he did that role very well, and held his own defensively as well. I don't think there's a problem with that, and it makes you wonder whether a bloke like Brodie Smith is worth more to us on the trade table than in the 22.
Well, yeah, we're going to be in a situation, and I know you guys will probably talk about Tuesday night, but it's a situation that we've signed up so many lately, and then when you look at the number that are left, and you'd think that we'd want to trade, at least take 5 people to the trade. That means somebody's got to go, and it's the ones that are on the periphery, like Ben Davis and Gallant, and they're not necessarily people that you want to get rid of, but you may have to.
Well, I don't understand why you would keep a kid like Ben Davis on the list for as long as we have, and then just right at the end of his contract, start playing him. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
I don't know why you've got to. Well, and that's I'm giving you my opinion. It doesn't make any sense. I would have stuck with Ben and given Ben games a lot sooner than this. And Lockie Gallant is another. We've done the same with other kids that we've since delisted where we didn't really develop them. Lockie Gallant had a string of form coinciding with Braden Cooks when we were crying out for a little bit of something different up forward and couldn't get a run. And then we bring in Shane McAdam instead of Lockie Gallant. We bring Lockie Murphy straight back into the 22 when he was fit. Lockie Murphy doesn't deserve that. He's not a first choice best 22 straight back in without a run. I'm not sure. So I'd be disappointed if Lockie Gallant didn't sign back on without having seen him play in the ones. But the way things are travelling, it wouldn't surprise me if that's what the outcome is.
Yeah, actually, in the chat,
J&M,
somebody said
J&M says they're not delisting him. That's only part of the equation. He may not want to sign back on J&M.
oh, but yeah, well, that's yet to be seen. And I do agree, O'Connor will definitely be the list. That'll be one of them.
Well, yeah,
And
I
I suppose that
think. What do you think about that, Nick? I think, unfortunately, O'Connor might be on the outer.
Yeah, definitely. Which was such a pity because we never really got a chance to see what he could possibly deliver. And he's another one of those, because he is that taller midfielder. We couldn't put him on a half forward flank, which is where we like to bring in our midfielders to play. If we had to bring him in, we had to bring him in and put him in the guts. And as per our conversation earlier, we don't like to do that with those midfielders. We had the set ones who were in there, and we don't like to push them out. The interesting thing for me with Davis is everybody always talks about those 5 years. He's been 5 years on the list, but when we got him first, he was injured, and we knew that. He's also done his knee, so there's another year that we've lost. Then he had another 2 years with long-term injuries. So realistically, in terms of chances for him to actually play, there have been less numbers than those 5 years. And I agree that he should have come in earlier and been given a chance. But the problem is that we have those good citizens who are professional, who aren't quite top tier AFL players, but they're okay AFL players, and we persist in playing them in Kelly and Murphy, etc. Lynch should have been phased out a long time ago because Davis was initially being trained up to do that role. We brought him in for one game down at the category, which was an absolute death knell for a poor kid trying to do that. He had an almost game, and then we decided that wasn't good enough, and he'd back to the twos for how long? And then he got injured again and didn't get another chance. For me, I would really like to keep Davis on the list. I think he should stay on. We say goodbye to Kelly. Thank you for your service. You've set the standards. That's fine. You can go somewhere else and set the standards there now. Gallant is that interesting one. You're right. We haven't heard a peep about the contracts of whether he has signed on or not. He's performed so well, just like Cook had. We've had those chances, and instead they've brought in Riley Tilthorpe, who's too tired, and we've seen it, when we could have brought Gallant in one of those places. It's frustrated me towards the end of this season when we've had these chances to play these younger players and the club's still being too hesitant to do so. We are in a rebuild. If you are serious about that rebuild, you've got to give these kids exposure at that level to give them a try.
Well, that's pretty good stuff then, Nicky. I agree with just about everything you said there. Another thing, just talking about Ben Davis, and as you said, he got a chance and then he didn't. It was at the Cattery, and I remember that one. He had a shocker, actually.
Well, he got his hands
He
to the
didn't have
ball.
a shocker, Macca.
He didn't have a shocker
at all.
He was so proactive. He was getting his hands to the ball. He actually got a lot of arm hits, those kind of ones, and they were dropping out. If it was played the past couple of years, he would have had so many frees. Well, if he was in another team, he would have had so many frees as a forward, because our forwards don't get those.
That was the start of my sentence. What I was going to say is I thought he had a poor game anyhow, and I thought his second game that he had was a poor game. Both times they played him in the forward lines. This game, they played him in the back lines, and I thought he looked very, very good and very natural and very comfortable in the back lines.
And he had good disposal.
And his disposal coming out was excellent.
He's got lovely disposal.
Yeah, and to me, it looked a totally different player to the player that played in the forward line. And, it is much harder to play forward line because you've got pressure from on you all the time. Too. But I just thought he read the play very well. I thought he tackled very well. I just thought I liked him, and Whereas I wouldn't have given you 2 bob for him as a forward. I would like to keep him if it's possible in the back line because I thought he showed a little bit of class at times when he had the ball.
All right. Now, just before we finish up, of course, 1990 has been sitting there for about a day with his hand up. So let's bring him in. Let's bring you in, 1990, and you can give us your learned views. And, of course, anyone else that wants to have a quick say, now would be the time to do so. 1990, how you going, mate?
Good, mate. How you going? I'll be quick tonight. I thought James Seller was pretty good.
Who's that? Hello?
Hello, you there, 99?
He was very quick tonight. Are you there, mate?
Sounded like you said James Seller.
That's what
I
he
thought
did say.
too.
And then he sank into a coma. I'm going to kick you out, 1990. You get your audio sorted and stick your hand up when you got your audio sorted. James Seller, I'm sure it was a snide remark, but I don't know who he was actually trying to troll there. Any ideas? Oh, here he is. Come back in. Let's see what. Explain yourself, 1990.
Can you hear me? Is that better?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
better. Who was James Seller?
I was just making a joke about NT Rabbit's comparison between Darcy Fogarty and James Seller going back 6 weeks.
Who
Who
made that comparison? NT Rabbit.
NT Rabbit.
Yeah. Not a fan.
I think Darcy Fogarty had his best game for his entire career today. I was very happy with that.
I agree. I think it's been underplayed, 1990, to be honest.
Yeah, I really liked it.
Is that it?
What else, mate?
No, that's it.
Hello?
No, he's having audio trouble, and that's all we got time for. Anyone else want to have a say?
Quality, not quantity.
That's right. Anyone else want to have a say? Put your hand up now. Just winding up. I think, look, last game of the season, obviously next week against North. Not a lot to play for. Certainly,
Except for Big Two.
Well, certainly we want to lose, or we don't want to win by much.
No. If we win, we jump ahead of Collingwood. We're on exactly the same number of points.
Yeah,
they're not going to win.
Who's got Collingwood's first pick?
GWS.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, bloody GWS getting Collingwood's pick 2 for God's sake.
Yep.
All right. Look, North are in pretty good nick. So you wouldn't mind betting that perhaps they will be too good for us, but I don't think we haven't been played too badly. We pushed Port Adelaide. We pushed Western Bulldogs for a while. We pushed Melbourne for a while. It should actually, if both teams actually come out to play football, it's got the trappings of a good game. But it'll be very interesting to watch the selections this week, I think.
Yes, because both these two sides, they might be 17th and 18th, but they've played very, very well against the top sides, and they've, even though North lost today, they played very, very well for most of the game, and us as well. So it's capable of being a quality game, but North, I think, can afford to go for the win because even if they win, they still remain bottom, and so they'll probably go. They probably will go for the win. I would be disappointed if we didn't have a few players that needed a rest, and give a couple of blokes, put a Lockie Gallant in for his first game, etc., etc. I'd be having quite a few new boys in there.
Well, I'll just finish up the podcast with one thing, and I'm sure that Pete and I will discuss it at more length on Tuesday night. But there's one result that has turned this into a dead rubber, and that was that useless what's the point of winning game against Hawthorn a month ago. And people saying, oh, but it's good for team morale and all the rest of it. We've just had 3 solid losses against the Western Bulldogs, Port Adelaide and Melbourne. And I would say that each of those games we've taken positive stuff out of, and yet we've lost 3 of them. And yet we're supposed to take some sort of, cultural positive out of beating Hawthorn, who are just around us on the ladder. It was the most ridiculous win, and it has cost us a chance at picking Jason Horne-Francis. And if anyone watched the South Adelaide game, even though North on Saturday did a number on South, you'll just see that the kind of talent that you're talking about. And the other kid that played, Matty Roberts obviously played well. The other kid to keep your eye on is Arlo Draper, because even though it was his debut at seniors, and it took him a little while to work into the game, but gee whiz, there's some flashes from Arlo. I've been a bit of a fan of his all year, and I wouldn't mind grabbing him with a second rounder. But I tell you what, that game versus Hawthorn has cost us dearly, in my opinion.
And I'm in the same camp as you, Dean. I was so angry that we won that particular game because I thought now we have blown it. We have blown it. Because there's no logical way that we can get back to be in a position to get Horn. And I know it goes with a wooden spoon goes with it, but with a wooden spoon, last year came Phil Thorpe. If you get a wooden spoon again this year, you get a Horn. So more ways than one. And so it's something. It's worth getting a few.
All right.
I was not going to say anymore.
Do you share that view, Nikki?
I'm just shaking my head.
We can't see that because you won't put your face on camera.
For good reason.
So, do you share that view?
About the Hawthorn game?
Yeah.
At the time, because I was so pissed at the way the umpiring and everything was going, like I was okay to lose it, and then the umpiring turned shit and was against us, and then I just kind of got angry and wanted to win. But after the game, it was like, oh, we possibly shouldn't have done that. And it's very interesting because at the time, I know that you and Pete were talking about were we outfoxed by Clarkson? Because, of course, he needed to tank to get the better draft picks. And then they got rid of him the following week.
And he
after us.
Hadn't lost since.
And all of us. And all of a sudden Hawthorn are playing so much better. Oh, what happened there? So, yes, I think we very much got Clarksoned.
Yeah. Even when we beat them, Hawthorn beat us.
Yes.
Look, it's going to piss me off to watch Jason run around in a North Melbourne Guernsey for the next couple of years. And the problem is that when he eventually comes back to South Australia, Port Adelaide will be his preference, and I'm sure Port Adelaide will welcome him with open arms when Travis Boak retires and they need to replace him with a young gun. So... Just an all-round shit show, that one. A real wasted opportunity. And yes, Matty Roberts is good. I don't think he's a pick 2. So, and we're getting off the Raps topic, so I'll leave this in a sec. But now we're left with the thing of, do we pick a genuine pick 2 and ignore Matty Roberts, or do we trade down and maybe trade down to 4 or 5 and something else? And take Matty Roberts, in the middle of the top 10, which is probably where he's going to go. I don't know. It's been mismanaged completely.
Well, I'm in the same camp as you, Fiend, 100%.
Yeah. Anyway, look, thanks very much to everyone who's joined us on the chat tonight and on the live studio audience. And also on YouTube, of course, and Twitch. Don't forget that Peter and I will be back on Tuesday night for Tuesday Night Live, where I'm sure we'll have a lot more of this conversation, so get around that. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter. Don't forget to give us a like and a subscribe on YouTube, if that's the platform that you're watching us on. And if you want to support the cast, get around patreon.com/AFL Crowcast. It's much appreciated. Until then, Macca, nice to have you back on deck tonight.
Loved it. Very good fun.
And Nikki, a pleasure as always.
It was lovely to have Macca back. We missed him in the second half last week.
We certainly did. Well, some of us did. Anyway, that's all for tonight. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you on Tuesday night.
Yeah, good night all.
Night all.